rain has stopped a little while. I tell you what, there's something else at home. We drive by Golden there as we go back and forth town, and all that flat ground in there around Golden has just been standing in the water as it has about everywhere. But this too shall pass. Don, I'm glad that you talked about Pentecost Sunday, because I'm not going to. Okay? It kind of goes with it, but it's not exactly Pentecost Sunday. John 16, 5 through 16. But now I'm going to him who sent me, yet none of you asked me, where are you going? Because I have said these things to you, sorrow has filled your hearts. Nevertheless, I tell you the truth. It is to your advantage that I go away. If I do not go away, the advocate will come with you, but if I go, I will send him to you. And when he comes, he will prove the world wrong about sin and righteousness and judgment. About sin, because they do not believe in me. About righteousness, because I am going to the Father, and you will see me no longer. About judgment, because the ruler of this world has been condemned. I still have many things to say to you, but you cannot bear them now. When the Spirit of truth comes, he will guide you into all truth, for he will not speak on his own, but will speak whatever he hears, and he will declare to you the things that are to come. He will glorify me, because he will take what is mine and declare it to you. All that the Father has is mine. For this reason I have said these, that he will take what is mine and declare it to you. A little while you will no longer see me, and again a little while, and you will see me. For all of you who like baseball, I have a story. It's one of the strangest plays, and even if you know baseball somewhat. Here's the story. The strangest plays in baseball took place years ago at Ebbets Field, the home of the old Brooklyn Dodgers, a long time ago. The Dodgers had men on first and second with no outs. The batter hit a towering fly to right center. The runners stayed close to their bases, thinking the ball would be caught. The batter, however, ignoring the men already on base, lowered his head and charged around the bases like a stampeding bull. The two base runners were confused. What were they to do? They couldn't let him pass him on the bases, or they would be out. To add to confusion, the center fielder dropped the ball. Now the two base runners knew what to do. They took off. Unfortunately, the three men, the two base runners, and the hitter arrived at third base neck and neck. Meanwhile, the center fielder finally found the ball and pegged it to home plate, cutting off any further advance. Got the picture? In the confusion at third base, all three runners stepped off the bag. The opposing catcher fired the ball to the third baseman, who promptly tagged all three out, completing a bizarre triple play. It had to be one of the most inept plays in the annals of baseball. When the hitter was confronted by the manager, he said something like, "Well, I just got confused." Modern life is confusing, isn't it? You've certainly noticed that, haven't you? Many of us spend our lives feeling confused. The world is changing so fast. The last few winters have caused confusion in Europe, whether you've read that or not. Britain has had its warmest November for more than 300 years. This caused havoc between plants and animals. Normally, November in Britain brings cold winds, numerous rainstorms. A couple of years ago, Britain enjoyed an average temperature around 50 degrees Fahrenheit, nearly 7 degrees above normal. Plants still thought it was summer. Hibernating animals and birds, which usually head south for the winter, stuck around. The average November temperature for central England was the highest since records began in 1659, all because of a few degrees temperature. Much of Europe experienced the warmest November on record. In Holland, daffodils and tulips sprouted and trees began to blossom. Got the picture? No wonder the Europeans are alarmed about global warming. When the flowers and the birds are confused about nature, what are the rest of us to think, for Pete's sakes? Now, if, and I want to emphasize that little teeny word, if if the dire predictions of most of the world's climatologists are accurate, if, I'm going to repeat, the future for our grandchildren looks grim. Of course, it's a very controversial issue, isn't it? This global warming. Opponents of environmental legislation argue that our standard of living will decline if we take drastic action. No one wants that. No one wants to see mass unemployment. It's an extremely important issue, but it is confusing. Earlier, I would listen to public radio in my car. That's the only thing I listen to, as a matter of fact. And they were talking about this global warming thing the other day, and one of the issues was this coal-fired power plants and all of that. And but the same thing, you think about, okay, I'm not making an argument for one side of this thing, I don't mean to. But in China, they're building new coal-fired power plants. This is a global affair, folks. That's the concern I have about this whole issue. We're going to have to do all this together. It can't be just one part of the world or one country or one anything if we're going to solve this problem, in my opinion. So much for that. I don't give you a chance to give your opinion of it, but sorry about that. You can tell me later on if you want to. But there are many confusing issues in today's world, aren't there? Many people are confused about morality. Boy, if that isn't an issue in our society. If there's one thing that will take us down, folks, that is it. Bruce Larson, in his latest book, tells a hilarious true story from his daughter. Her sister-in-law is a conservationist, and she and her husband and young son were driving up the coast of Florida on a vacation. They noticed a sign saying naturist camp and assumed it was the same as the naturalist camp. Now don't get ahead of me. Okay? They drove in, parked their car, and headed toward the beach. They quickly realized that the naturist camp was actually a nudist camp. When they came upon a group of people all stark naked cycling along the beach, their 5-year-old son stopped and stared in amazement. "Look, Mom and Daddy," he said, pointing, "they're not wearing safety helmets." I guess they weren't. It's a confusing world out there, folks. That's why we cannot help but be personally attracted to John 16:3. It says, "But when the Spirit of truth comes, he will guide you into all truth." If there's one thing we need today, it's to be led by the Spirit of truth. Everyone says that they have the truth. So how do we discern the truth about the great moral and spiritual issues of today? How do we do that? How do we know the right things to do? How do we do that? If it is true that Christ has sent his Holy Spirit to guide us into knowing and applying truth to all of our lives, how can we know that truth and make sense of the confusing world in which we live when there are so many truths out there? Some time back, they arrested a man in Washington, D.C. who had been robbing liquor stores all over the city. The odd thing was, he only robbed the stores during the day. When the police asked him why he did this, he said, "Well, are you kidding? It isn't safe to be on the streets at night with that much money." Even he was afraid. Confused. It's a crazy world. It's a confusing world. In his book, The Pursuit of Happiness, David Myers writes that from 1957 to 1990, per capita income in the United States more than doubled. But the number of Americans who reported being happy remained the same. Now, our theory is that the more we have, and more comforts we have, and more money we have, the happier we want to be. All the advances in medical sciences, all the achievements in technology, all the increases in material wealth and prosperity has not supplied us with an answer to our deepest yearnings or fulfilled our deepest needs. And it won't. It hasn't, and it won't. folks, never have we been so self-reliant or so lonely. If there's one word that describes our society as a whole, it's got to be loneliness. Never have we seemed so free and our prisons so overcrowded. Never have we been had so much education or such high rates of teen delinquency or despair and suicide. Never have we been so sophisticated about pleasure or so likely to suffer from broken and miserable marriages. Think about it, folks. Does all of this make any sense? God gave us brains, didn't He? He meant for us to use them. Do you have questions about the things of God? Is the Christian gospel true? Test it out in your own life. Think about it. Think about it. Does it work to believe that your body is a temple of a living God and that you should take care of it? Does it pay to be faithful to your wife and to love and honor both your children and your parents? Does that make sense? Does it pay in society to say thou shalt not kill and thou shalt not steal? Does it help to pray for those who are sick and to believe that we can trust God for our lives and the lives of those we love? What other alternative do we have? You know of a better way to live than to love your neighbor as yourself? Is it true? This gospel? What do you think? Trust your experiences and your ability to reason. Use your brains. God gave them to you. Of course, that's all up to a point. Just knew I was going to say that. Up to a point. We're all aware that our brains and our experiences can mislead us. For example, few thinkers have ever surpassed the immortal Greek philosopher Aristotle. And yet Aristotle made mistakes. For example, he taught that if a 1-pound ball and a 5-pound ball of the same size were dropped at the same time from the same height, the 5-pound ball would fall 5 times faster than the 1-pound ball. Sounds reasonable to me. And for nearly 2,000 years, it was an accepted fact. But then, Galileo dropped 2 such balls from the Tower of Pisa. They hit the ground, guess what? Same time. One of the great thinkers of all time had been wrong. So, we've got to be careful. We can be wrong. But we must begin our search for truth with a modest confidence in the reliability of our own brains. We've got to start there. God gave them to us to use. Final story. Now, I want you to caution here. A University of Southern California professor, that's the caution, okay, wrote an article in the Christian Century a few years back, tracing his religious pilgrimage, which took him away from the church for a large part of his adult life, and then brought it back again. In the concluding paragraphs, this is what he wrote. One thing that brought me back to the church was asking simply, what are the alternatives to the church? Where are the communities that sanction the pursuit of meaning and truth as a legitimate enterprise? Where is a community that has material and personal resources to assist in this search? Where is a community that provides regular occasions for confession of failures, that renew and inspire us, where social issues can be debated? Carefully, I might add. There are a number of institutions that deal with one or several of these questions, but historically the church has demonstrated its ability to energize all these activities. Now, you can put that in your own terms, in your own language, and figure out what he's trying to say. But he's saying it's in the church. That's our hope. That's where we find ourselves, where we find truth. And so if you're feeling a little confused about different aspects of your life right now, I encourage you to look at the scriptures in the Spirit of Christ. Go to your knees if you must. Don't hesitate. Look for Christ's guidance from within. Share your concerns with me. I have concerns that I'd like to share with you. With friends here at the church. We must learn to share with one another, support one another, and believe and trust one another. We're going to really be the church. Your decisions, our decisions, won't be perfect, I assure you. But we will make better decisions. And Christ guarantees it. Because he said he will be with us. Where two or three are gathered together. His name.